Today, we're talking about President James Garfield's time in Pikeville during the Civil War. Hello everyone, welcome to Pikeville History Moments, where we talk about the history and heritage of Pikeville, Kentucky and the surrounding area. Today, we'll talk about James Garfield's successful campaign to end Confederate control of eastern Kentucky. Later, we'll tell you a little-known story about how his personal knowledge and bravery proved key to that success. In late 1861, Confederate General Humphrey Marshall had established control of eastern Kentucky and a base near Paintsville along the Leviza Fork of the Big Sandy River. James Garfield was a newly commissioned colonel in the Union Army and reported to Catlettsburg near the mouth of the river. There, General Buell of the Army of the Ohio gave him command of around 1,500 infantry and cavalry and told him to push Marshall up the Leviza Fork and into Virginia. Garfield's troops advanced and engaged in a small skirmish near the Confederate base on January 7th of 1862, but the enemy quickly retreated upstream. Garfield pushed over muddy roads to catch the rebels just outside of Prestonsburg. There, on January 10th, the two sides fought a pitched battle at Middle Creek. Although hard fought, the Union troops took the victory, and Marshall began a nearly continuous retreat to Virginia. Garfield pursued Marshall upriver and established camp in Pikeville. The weather turned against him though, as a flood hit the town in late February. In a letter to his wife Lucretia, Garfield said that the house he was staying in was surrounded by water, despite being 60 feet above the normal river level. He later reported that the flood was more dangerous to his men than General Marshall had ever been, as supplies and men were both lost to the flood. By mid-March, Garfield was promoted to be the youngest brigadier general in the Union Army. He was sworn in at the age of 30 by a local squire. On March 14th, he left Pikeville with around 700 men and met Marshall's remaining forces at Pound Gap near the border. The Confederates were routed in less than half an hour, moved further into Virginia, and abandoned all attempts to control the Big Sandy River Valley. Garfield was assigned to a brigade in Tennessee. The reputation he earned during the war would help him gain the presidency nearly 20 years later. What's not widely known is that after the Battle of Middle Creek, Garfield's troops found themselves dangerously low on supplies with no clear solution. The Leviza Fork had swollen to flood levels and the muddy roads were nearly impassable. However, Garfield overruled his officers' objections and took a single scout with him in a skiff downstream through dangerous waters towards Catlettsburg. There, the two men found the steamship Sandy Valley and attempted to hire it, but the captain refused, citing the danger from the high water. Garfield had worked on canal boats in his early years and knew how to pilot fast currents among rocks and other hazards. He arrested the captain, commandeered the steamer, and piloted it himself with his scout and the reluctant captain for a crew. It was reported to be a harrowing trip, with the captain arguing for abandoning it at every chance. Garfield used the steamer to supply grateful troops in Paintsville, Prestonsburg, and Pikeville. When he arrived with the supplies at camp, it is reported that his troops carried him on their shoulders in celebration. Thank you for watching Pikeville History Moments. you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe, or click on the link to our website at visitpikeville.com.